Welcome to Table Talk Reviews. In this video, I'll be previewing World Stitchers, a game for 1 to 4 players designed by Pepin Van Loon and launching on Kickstarter from Broken Mill Games. In World Stitchers, players control animal spirits, building a new world through tile placement, moving around collecting energy, and building spires to earn the right to name this new world. Let me show you how to play, and then we'll get into my thoughts. Let's start by explaining how a player's turn works, and then I'll explain the game setup so you have a better understanding of the decisions you have to make during setup. So this world is already set up for 4 players. On your turn, you will do 1 of 3 actions and then move your figure around the world. The first action you can do is take one of the tiles from the sky and add it to the world for free. Placement rules are simply that at least one edge must connect to an existing tile in the world. You simply can't half connect. Each short edge is 1 edge and the long edge is 2 edges. So you could connect like this. That is a legal placement. As you can see, terrain does not need to connect, but it will help spawn more energy. So if I place the tile like this, after placing, energy tokens will be placed on each of the spaces on the placed tile. Then for any connecting terrain, energy will also be spawned. Here the water is connected, so energy will spawn. Because there is a player on this water space, they will immediately collect this energy token. If this orange player was on this space, they would also collect an energy token on another player's turn. The second action you can choose on your turn is to build a spire. These are the spire cards. If you have 8 energy on your turn in future rounds, you can return it to the supply and take the topmost card and add it to your play area. Spire cards decrease in value but always cost 8 energy, so building spires sooner will earn you more points. The last action you can choose on your turn is to spend 2 energy to take a tile from the sky and add it to your stamina. Your stamina is used to move your figure around the world and collect energy. After taking one of the 3 actions just described, you now proceed to your movement phase where you can move as many spaces as you have stamina, and each space must match the terrain of the tile. So here, this blue player could move 1 space for this tile onto this mountain space, and they would flip this tile over to indicate they've used it this turn. Now, I only have the choice to move onto water because I only had a forest space on the same tile I spent to move onto the mountain space. So that tile's already spent this turn, and now I can spend this one to move onto the water space here, which has a gem, so I will collect that gem and end my turn there. Players can move their figure through another player's space, but they cannot end on the same space. If they move through a space with another player, they must give that player 1 energy. If they do not have any energy, you may move through that space for free. To end your turn, simply refresh your stamina and refill the sky up to 3 tiles. To set up the game, give the first player token to a random player. Each player can take one of the animal spirit figures and 3 land tiles. Also reveal 3 land tiles face up to form the sky. Place the supply of energy tokens on the table and the spire cards in decreasing order. Beginning with the first player and continuing in turn order, players will choose 1 tile to add to the world, placing their figure on either of the spaces. The other 2 tiles will be your starting stamina. The first player simply places their tile on the table. Other players must follow placement rules as previously explained. No energy tokens are placed while setting up the world. The end of the game can be triggered by a player building 3 spire cards, or having 40 or more energy, or by no land tiles being left in the reserve. If any of these occur, players finish the round so that all players have an equal number of turns. The player to the left of the first player will take the last turn. To calculate your final score, add up the points on your Spire cards and add 1 point for each remaining energy. The player with the most points is the winner. If there is a tie, players share victory. There are 4 optional modules you can add into the base game, either by randomly selecting 1 or 2 of these cards, or choosing which modules you like to play with. To play with the goal module, deal 2 goal cards to each player. They will choose one and discard the other. The chosen goal card is kept secret from other players. At the end of the game, players will score points as indicated on their goal card. For example, specific types of terrain in your stamina, sets of terrain in your stamina, or for having built 3 Spire cards. To play with the power module, deal 2 power cards to each player. They will choose one and discard the other. These cards are kept face up in front of them and give you a special ability to use throughout the game. These are things such as being able to teleport to a specific terrain type at the start of your turn, decreasing the cost to purchase stamina, being able to take an extra turn once per game, adding the butterfly token to your starting space to collect energy for you throughout the rest of the game, being able to swap one of your stamina tiles with a tile from the sky, starting the game with 4 energy, or refreshing the sky with 3 new tiles at the start of your turn. To play with the objective module, reveal 3 objective cards during setup. On a player's turn, if they complete a requirement, such as moving to all 4 terrain types in a single turn, they claim that card and score those points at the end of the game. End of game objectives marked with an hourglass symbol are not collected and will be awarded to a player at the end of the game based on the criteria on the card, such as the player with the most energy receiving 2 additional points. At the end of a player's turn, replace any claimed objectives so that there are always 3 objectives visible. To play with the area control module, give each player the 4 tokens matching their animal spirit. When a player builds a spire, they place one of their tokens on their current tile, and other players can no longer enter that tile, and any energy that would spawn on that tile is collected by that player. To play solo, you will use the Automa deck. Choose your stamina tiles as normal, and place your remaining tile into the world. Draw a random tile from the supply, and add one of the other spirit meeples to play as the Automa player. At the beginning of your turn, you will draw 1 Automa card. This is so you can anticipate some of the things your opponent will do on their turn, but does not activate until you've carried out your turn as normal. After which, you will draw a second card and carry out all of the actions from top to bottom in order, giving that player 1 energy, placing their meeple on a space closest to you with the same terrain type, giving them another energy, and then removing tiles of a specific type that you choose from the sky. And if you're playing with the objective module or other modules, their abilities will be indicated on the bottom of the card. Discard these cards, reveal a new card, and continue your turn. Now, because this is a prototype, I'm not going to go into the insert or components too much, but I will say that the animal meeples are really cute and definitely help attract players to the table. It does build a bit of a theme overall with details in the art, like on the tiles there's stitch marks to really convey that idea we're stitching this world together. But overall, this isn't a game I would consider thematic. The actions don't really have too much to do with anything. They really just put this theme on there, and I do appreciate that. It is a cute theme, but it's not something, if you're looking for a really thematic game, that I would recommend. The 2 things that really set this game apart are, firstly, the tile shape. Just that simple change in shape really messes with your brain and how you have to think about the tile placement. It creates a really good puzzle that distinguishes itself from all the many square and rectangular tile placement games that are out there. The second aspect that I really enjoyed was the way the movement works. You're restricted to having to match terrain in your stamina to a path on the world, hopefully collecting as much energy as possible on your turn. As well, there's this balance of, is it still worth it to add more tiles this late in the game to my stamina to be able to collect more energy, because you're giving 2 energy, which is essentially 2 points to get another tile there. Of course, if you're playing with the goal module, that changes it up entirely, because you might want to get more of a specific terrain in your stamina to earn more points. So you're really spending 2 but gaining a point. You're only really losing 1, and you're gonna have a few more turns to recoup more energy. But sometimes I've found at a certain point, if you have too much stamina, it's almost impossible. It becomes really difficult to find a path in order where every single spot has energy, so you end up not needing to use some of your stamina anyways, so maybe you wasted those points, and that's a fun challenge to figure out. If you like player interaction, there is definitely a little bit of that in World Stitchers. First and most obviously, there's the Spire cards. Everyone's racing to be one of the first 2 people to build a Spire and earn the 12-point card. But after that, everyone relaxes. If you were close to getting one of those cards, you probably have 8 energy stowed away, and there's no urgency to buy the 10-point card. There's enough of them that as soon as someone buys one, you can just then spend your 8 energy. It's better to just sit there and collect more energy and possibly get 2 of the 10s back to back later on. The real player interaction comes on the world, moving around the tiles and your tile placement. So especially in a 4-player game, it doesn't happen as often in a 2-player game. There's more players on the same connected area of terrain, so you're looking for your best placement, but then you realize it's going to give 1 or 2 other players an extra energy, and you really don't want to give them that benefit, especially if they're competing for first place with you. So you have to look for another place that's not as good to still collect some energy on your turn. So that's a little bit tough. And then there's also sometimes when I would have just 1 movement left and there were a few options I could go with, all of them had energy, I would move onto a space in a way that I would hopefully disrupt a path, claiming an energy that was on the path that my opponent was going to take on their next turn. So then they have to go around or go through me, which they're not going to do. That didn't happen very often where a player would need to go through another player and give them energy. In fact, in the many games I played, I never saw it once. Theoretically, you could build a single strip of terrain and a secondary section of the world trying to entice players over there to give you some energy, but it just didn't happen. One of the minor downsides to this game is that towards the end, you can see sometimes a clear-cut leader and math out whether or not you can catch them, because you know your maximum energy is your movement +1, and as long as nobody gives you an energy through their tile placement or moving through your space on their turn, you can tell whether or not with like 2 or 3 more turns, whether you're going to be able to catch them. And that kind of just sucks sometimes to really see like, okay, there's 2 turns left and I've lost, let's just finish this and get it over with. But that all changes if you add in the modules. After playing the game once, there's really no reason to not play with the modules. Aside from the area control module, they're all really easy to understand, and things like the goal module definitely are worth shaking up the game in that minor way, so that even if you math it out and you're like, okay, I'm gonna lose by 1 point, but I still have my goal module to rely on, I might be able to edge out a victory or at least tie them. And the modules are just so easy to understand. I played with brand new players and introduced modules right away, and they had no problem picking it up. Playing the solo game was really interesting because it gave you a lot of choice. Sometimes the Automa cards would tell you things like add a tile from the sky to the world, and you have full choice. You can choose the tile, you can choose where you place it. You don't have to place close to the Automa meeple, you can place it close to your meeple, spawning energy into your space, creating energy around you so you're going to collect it on your next turn. It gave you all that freedom, and yet it was still challenging to defeat the Automa player on normal mode. And if you are able to master that, you can add starting energy to the Automa player so that they can buy Spire cards even faster, and it's that much more challenging. So if you want a new twist on a tile placement game, or just a relaxing family weight game to introduce to new players, consider World Stitchers. I'll have links to the Kickstarter in the description. Check that out and subscribe to my channel for more board game videos to come.